Hello and welcome to this section or intermediate CSS. So we have finished introduction to CSS. So let's understand some interesting concepts around CSS. That's basically how do you do a layout of your web page. Till now you have seen how to work with understanding how to write CSS, what are the different rules of CSS, and then how to work with colors, text and all those things. So there's one important concept in CSS is about laying out your content. And then you will understand some of the concept like how to create boxes, how to do floating of the columns, how to move the boxes around, how to position those boxes one after the other or in line or one after the other. Then you can understand how to play around and create the layouts like header, footer, sidebars. You can move those boxes anywhere you want inside the pages. You'll also understand how to work with importing the Google font, also work with the shortcut icon that you can apply it for your web page. Alright. So we'll learn all these concepts. So let's start creating the folder and understand how to create a box first and what are boxes in HTML pages. So for this I'll create a folder called intermediate CSS, and the first folder we'll create is called as CSS Box. Okay, we'll create a couple of examples here and we'll understand how to create a box and what is actually a box in CSS. Okay, so let's draw a box first. That is your first example. Okay, and let's open this folder. So we were in introduction to CSS, say open folder. We'll go to intermediate CSS and we'll select this folder. Okay, and then we'll draw the box here. So for this we will copy the code from previous files. Let's take the selectors. We'll go to type. We'll edit this with the brackets. Copy paste this. I'm going to close this again and I'm going to paste it for draw box. Okay, so we'll say draw box here. Okay, and we're going to remove all the CSS here and then all the HTML here. I'm going to remove this definition of CSS and let's simply draw a box. So what we're going to do is the body, the text of the color we will say white. Then we will create a box. Okay, how do you create a box, a rectangular box, right? First you will have a background color for it, right? Let's say red. Okay, and you can mention height and the width, that's all. Then whatever is the height and the width, that becomes a box. Okay, so we're gonna see that. So we'll say we want to draw an 100 of 100 box, that's a square box, 100 in width and 100 in height. Okay, let's draw a box now. Let's say box and we just say red box, right? There's nothing I'm doing it here, I'm just trying to show you a box. Then we will play around with this box by moving this box around, putting multiple boxes together. But first you have to understand how to draw a box. Very simple to draw a box. You just change the background color, then you change the height and the width of the box. Okay, so let's look at the box now. Okay, you can see a simple box here, right? A simple box is drawn with a red color inside it. So now you have understood how to draw a box. Let's add some border to it. Okay, let's go to intermediate CSS, create another example. Let's call this border box. Right, let's open this up. We'll say border. Alright, so I'm going to delete everything. We're going to create some more examples to understand this concept of how to add borders to the box. Okay, so let me show you what are the properties we have. So I'm going to copy paste the properties of a bordering the box. You have border style, border color, border width, border top style, and border bottom style. So before that, I want to show you the border. Okay, so for this, let me use a universal selector, and I'm saying the border style is solid and the border color is red. All right, and I have some h1 and div tags and some text inside it. Right, the universal selector will show you all the different boxes that you can have around the tags. Right, so there's a magical box around every HTML tags. You can see the boxes around each of the elements. So we'll try to play around with these boxes. All right, so I'm gonna cut this out and put it inside. Okay, so let's play around with these boxes now. So for every div that we have written, we'll draw a box. So we can say border style is solid. You can have dashed as well. So let's look at the, so you can see the solid style here. All right, then the border color red. Okay, you can see it's red in color, the border is red in color. Then the border width is, let's say, 4px. Okay, so width of that border is 4px. Okay, then you can say border top style is dashed. Means you can control the top border. You're just saying apply this rule onto the only the top border. And you can say bottom style to be dotted. Right, so you see you have changed the settings of the border as well. Okay, that's what we are trying to understand, and we are all playing around with the boxes. Okay, let's draw two colors of border, blue color and the red color. We say border of 5px, and you can say solid and blue in color. Then you can also have red border or green border, and you can say it's green. Right, so let's apply this blue border and the green border to this borders. Okay, so we have three borders, 1, 2 and 3. That's basically 3 divs. So let's apply the second div as blue in color. The first is red, so we'll say blue border. So you can say it's blue border solid. Right, then you can have green border. Okay, so you can see blue border and the green border, and then this border we have play around with this borders. The only thing that you have to understand is every tag has borders. Okay, and then you have styles to play around with the borders as well. Okay, let's look at the margin between the boxes. Okay, so let's create another file. And we'll say box margin. Let's open this up. Okay, so I'm going to remove all these conditions here. We'll create different boxes and we'll add margin to those boxes. Alright, so I've copy pasted some of the margin properties. Okay, so margin can be used to add spaces between the boxes. So every tag that you see, the div tag is one box, so you can add spaces between the two div tags, that is the two boxes. And the properties that you have is margin, margin top, margin right. So you're going in a clockwise direction, top, right, bottom and left. Okay, like a clock you're going. So you have to think like a clockwise direction, top, right, bottom and left. Okay, so when you define the condition, you can mention top, right, bottom and left like this, or you can mention it only via one parameter. So one parameter, when you say margin is 5px, which means top is 5px, right is 5px, bottom is 5 and left is 5. You can even choose to have all 4 defined with spaces, right? You're not saying margin top, margin right, margin bottom, but you're basically saying apply the margin for all the different areas, right? Top 5 right 5, bottom 5 and left 5. You can even mention 3 of them. So you're saying top is 5, left and right is 5, that is left and right, and bottom is 5px. Alright, so this is how you can play around by adding margins. So let's create some margins here, and then we'll attach it to the div tags that you have created here. Okay, so we'll create a red border and we'll say border. Okay, so when I say 5px, it is 5px top, right, bottom and left, right? And when I'm saying solid, it's a solid line. You can have dashed line or dotted line, then it's red in color. Okay, and I'm saying margin bottom 25px, so that's basically the margin between the boxes. So I'm pushing some boxes down 25px. So I'm gonna have a blue border and I'm gonna have a green border. Okay, so I'm gonna say the margin for first one is bottom at 25px, and the second one top, I'm pushing it by 25. Okay, and then the left, I'm pushing it by 20. Okay, I'm just trying to add some spaces, top and left, top and left, right? So left I'm adding maybe 50 and top is 25. Okay, and I'm going to change the color. This is green, this is blue. Okay, the first margin example with solid red line. Okay, that's the first thing. So we'll use a class of red border that we draw. Okay, you can see the margin example with solid red line. So red line is not visible, so we have red border here. We have say colon, then we should be able to see a red border here. Okay, next is margin example with dashed red line. Okay, how do you draw a dashed red line? So let's look at border first. Okay, you have the border, right border. Now I will add a style to it, inline style. To stay, the border style is dashed, right? You can see the dashed is coming. So how do you do dotted? Same thing, and you can say dotted. Okay, you get the dotted red line, and you can see the space margin that is being adding. Okay, similarly you can have solid blue line, dashed blue line, dotted blue line, solid green color, dashed blue color, and the dotted green line. Okay, so I'm going to copy paste all the other conditions, and you can see all the different margins that we have created. All right, so if you look at the example, the one that I wanted to focus is on the spaces, the margins, right? If you look at the margin onto these 3 boxes, okay, right here 3 boxes. Okay, the margin is at the bottom. For the red, the margin is at the bottom, right? That's why you see the space at the bottom. For blue lines, for all the blue borders, right, for all the blue borders, you say the margin top is 25 but left is again 20. That's why you see there's a margin onto the left and the top. Okay, and for the green ones, you say the left is 50, right? So that's why there are more spaces on the left. Okay, and again also onto the bottom and the top, you will definitely have some margins there. So you're adding some margin onto the top, and on the margins onto the red you have bottom margins. For blue boxes you have left margin which is 25, and green you have added 50. So you're moving the box, right? And how's the output? The output looks something like this. Okay, it's look like all the boxes are arranged in a sequence with some spaces in the front, right? That's basically coming up from your margins. If you look at your margins here, that's basically adding up the spaces. Okay, it's not about borders here, but it's about adding the margin. I have added some borders just to show you, to visualize you how is the space. If I remove the borders, you cannot see the spaces. That's why we have added the margin. So margin is not inside, okay, it's outside. Okay, remember that, always remember margins are outside. If you want to see an example of what is the margin looks like, Think of like this, right? You have a margin top, you have a margin right, margin bottom, and a margin left. So you're trying to add spaces onto top, means you're adding the spaces on the top and on the right, on the bottom and the left. And if you look at the lines, you're not adding inside, you're adding outside. Okay, that's basically the property of margins. And again, how you can add different ways of margin is all over here. Okay, so next let's look up adding the padding. Padding is inside, the spaces is inside the box, not outside the box. Okay, so I'm going to copy paste the padding. I'm going to add the file here, box padding. Okay, padding exactly similar as like margin. The only difference is padding will add spaces inside the box. So you see the padding is added inside the box. Let's review what we have done. We have removed the margin, we have added padding here. Again, padding top, padding right, bottom and left. And you can say padding all around the box. Then you can basically see the space inside the box. Okay, there is no margin here. If you look at this, there's no margin on the left or bottom or top. That's why it's all the boxes are attached together, because there is no space between the boxes. Padding, you have added the around 4 sides. That's why you see the spaces are around 4 sides. Okay, so understand the difference between adding a padding onto the top, padding onto the left, and padding is all sides. And if you see from this, there is no margin, right? There's no margin. That's why all the boxes are attached together. If you look at the previous example, let's open the previous. The margins, basically what we had is outside the spaces. The spaces outside the boxes. Padding is inside the boxes. Okay, you have the same example of top, right, bottom and the left. Okay, then you can play around with the boxes. There's one more example called box size. Let's open that up. Box size. Okay, you can mention the size of the box, right? We saw how to draw a box with height and the width. You can mention that size with width, height, minimum width and minimum height, and then maximum width and maximum height. So you draw boxes. When you draw boxes, you mention height and width. Then you draw margin. Then you would say this is the minimum width, it has to be there. You cannot go smaller than this. That's the minimum width. And when you say maximum, that's the maximum you can have for the boxes. Okay, let's open this file. Okay, you can see 250 by 250, which means height is 250, width is 250. Okay, and then you have padding. So you see the spaces, there's no space here. You're adding a padding of 10, you see a nice space coming up here. Okay, and then for each boxes you have adding some space. That's why you see some space. That is the margin that you're adding. Okay, and then you can have the flexible boxes, which means this has no limit, so it will grow as you increase it, right? It's increase as it grows because it has no min and max height. Okay, if you have min and max height, you cannot grow bigger than this. Max means maximum, you can grow that big. That will be restricted by the CSS, and then you cannot grow bigger than that. Okay, this is all basically playing around with the boxes. You are trying to create a space in the web page, and then you're trying to create some space on top, on the right, on the bottom and the left. You're creating outside with the margin, inside with the padding, and then you are trying to have the width of that box, maximum width, minimum width, height and the width of that box. Okay, so this is the very good example if I want you to try. You have how to draw a box, how to draw borders, how to draw margins, how to draw padding, and then how to define the size of that box. Okay, so do this exercise, understand how these things work, and have some exercises done around it by defining multiple boxes. You may not be able to place box one after the other because that's the nature of the box when you don't have other conditions, which we're going to learn in next lectures. But draw as many boxes you like, put some colors in it, try to do some play around with it by attaching 2 boxes, having some space, having the space inside. So you'll understand how the box works, because once you understand how the box works and how to move the boxes, you will understand how to create a layout for your web page. Okay, so it's a very important concept. I want you to give a try for understanding how to work with boxes. All right, so that's all for this lecture on creating CSS boxes, and I'll see you in the next one.